Hey guys, what's going on? It's Green Thumb. So some of you have been following along with the garden experiment that we've been growing over the winter time to see if we can grow food in the house. So things actually grew. I mean, these tomatoes are bouncing off the top of the tent, but it's time for everything to come down. So just gonna throw the camera on. I'm gonna tear everything down. Tools we're using today are the Fiskars titanium coated Fiskars pruners, and my Cold Steel Recon 1 half serration, just in case things get a little crazy in here. So pretty much all we're going to do is we're just going to start peeling stuff off. I've got everything tied on to the trellis with twist ties, so I'm going to have to cut everything apart in order to get it down. But it is what it is. We had a good run. Look, there's a little tomato. So I know with this whole kind of process, you can do this in your place. You can do this wherever you want. You just need to make sure you can keep your temperatures warm enough. See? More tomatoes. Can't do anything with these. I could probably cut a few and cut some suckers. You know what? This isn't working. We're just going to cut these ties. You can grow this anywhere, guys. Anybody could do this. It didn't take much. Took a couple of pots and some soil and some lights. I'm using dual bulb shop lights with T8s, and they're 32 watt, and they are the sunshine color, I think they're called. No, what are they called? The daylight bulbs. And then down here I've got 4-foot T5s. And I only use these things. I use all these lights in my other greenhouse in the springtime to start all my seedlings. But look, here we go, changing colors. So I could put these on my windowsill and ripen them up for a couple of days, which I'm probably going to do because that way at least I can say I've eaten some of the tomatoes out of there. So we'll put those aside. So another thing we could do with these is, see if I can find a good example here. If you have suckers growing on your plants, I think I trimmed them all away. But if you have suckers growing and you wanted to, you could just take those suckers and transplant them, and they'll just start to grow for you. And depending on what your climate's like, you know, you could literally just transplant right from in the greenhouse, right from your greenhouse, right out into the garden. Depending, I mean, there's no way you could move these 5-foot tomatoes outside right now because they would just fall to pieces in the process, but all my snow peas. Bit by bit by bit. I did look into it. You can feed these to your chickens. I was going to feed all these to my chickens, but that train's passed, so none of that. Look at these, just all the vines from the snow peas. These things grew crazy fast. They hit to the top of the greenhouse in roughly the first month or so after planting. So this is literally just going to be a chop and drop, guys. I did have flowers on these somewhere. Yeah, see, there's a, right there. Those are beans starting to grow. See if we can get that into focus. There. So they are starting to grow beans, but that was also a lighting issue. I figured that was also going to be a problem. So down she comes. Cucumbers in the back. I was growing, like, you know, Little cucumber started. Flowers everywhere. So I was going to hand pollinate these to get cucumbers growing, to get more of them growing, so I had better pollination happening. But once I found out that I wasn't going to be able to grow them to completion, once I figured I couldn't grow them to completion, it just kind of slowed down all the effort, right? Why put a bunch of effort into something you're not necessarily going to see it work out for you? But we did have a few other cucumbers growing in some of the vines that I've just already removed. Oh. Alright, so remember we talked about suckers on indeterminate varieties? There's one right there. They grow every time you have a branch with your sun leaves on it and your main stem. They always grow up in a 45. And there's all the little hairs on here. I don't know if the camera will pick it up. All these little hairs on this tomato plant, if you buried that stem from this sucker, it's just going to grow another clone of this plant. You're not going to want to grow a sunleaf branch, but you could grow one of these suckers. And you can just stick that right in some dirt and she'll take right off. All those little tiny hairs you see on here will turn into roots given time. See, there's another sucker. So there's where the sunleaf branch was, sticking out that way, right? And here's the little sucker growing. And I've got the whole greenhouse wrapped with this trellis netting you see in the back. And it's just all tied onto the poles with the little tiny, like 4-inch tiny cable ties. Bye-bye cucumbers. Yeah.
I need 2 little tiny balls, the little tiny small ones like this big.
You need what?
I need 2 little tiny ones. Balls that are like...
2 little balls? I don't have anything
No,
like
2
that.
little balls.
Bolts? I don't have bolts
Like
right now.
this big.
We've packed up all the tools because we're moving.
Well,
Buddy, I'm filming, you have to leave.
I
I'm
can just get-
out, please. I'm filming, you have to get out. I told you not to interrupt me. Sorry about that. Kids, they're doing remote learning. It's art class. Another sucker, see? They always grow. Here's their sun leaves. There's another sucker. And these things grow fast. You go away to the cottage for a couple of days. In the summertime, you go back, you got to come through your whole garden and pick all those suckers off. Now, that's if you want to grow them single stem. I grow all my indeterminate tomatoes on a single stem. I don't let any suckers grow. They take away nutrients from the plant, and it literally just creates a mass jungle. I tried that a few years ago just to see what would happen. And I let my suckers grow. Well, next thing you know, the garden was so crazy with all of the suckers everywhere that I ended up having to put stakes all through the garden, and I had strips of cloth holding branches up, and it got so dark in there that the tomatoes in the center of this huge jungle, they never even ripened up because the sun wasn't even getting to them. And it became such a mess in there that you couldn't even get into the center. See? This is from my San Marzano tomato. That's what's growing on the other side. So it's still ripe. I'm not even keeping that one. Not worth it. So things that did work really well in here were beans. yellow, green, and purple. Let's see if we can get a purple one. And when they're growing outside in the sunshine, they're even darker green than that. And when you cook them, when you steam them, the purple ones lose all their color and they end up green anyways. So, and then we've got yellow Swiss chard. That's grown like crazy. I haven't even tried any of this stuff yet. Tastes like green. I'm sure it's better if it's cooked. Everybody says this stuff is great. I grew the yellow kind because they always tell us to kind of eat the colors of the rainbow, right? So I grew yellow. Yeah. Now all I taste is green. Like chewing on a handful of grass. I grew ruby red lettuce. That one did okay. And I've got Butter Crunch Butterhead. I use also another little life hack. These labels, all I do is I cut strips out of the 1 liter yogurt containers. I cut the ring off the bottom, I cut the ring off the top, and then just cut them in strips. And you can put these all through your garden, and I just write on it with a Sharpie marker. You don't need to go and buy all those labels from Amazon and the rest of that stuff. If you're just going through, plastic containers, chop them down with a pair of scissors, cut the ring off the bottom, the ring off the top, and stockpile them. Especially when you guys are starting your little seedlings, and let's say you're doing 6 kinds of tomatoes. Isn't it easier to have a nice label like this that you can stick in your cup and you can read from a distance, as opposed to writing everything on the little cups and you're turning all the little cups all sideways and stuff trying to read what's on there? And I also grew red romaine lettuce. That didn't work out nearly as well. I'm not entirely sure why. But the Butter Crunch was fantastic. I'm going to be growing a lot more of that stuff in the future. Right. Last tomato plant. That's it. So when I talk about single stemming my indeterminate tomatoes, that's what the whole bottom of the plant looks like. I trim all the leaves off the plant until right below the lowest fruit set. And when these get really long, all I do is I just lower the cable from the top, just like they do in greenhouses, and this tomato will bend like this on the ground. And as it continues to grow up, I'll just release more cable, and it'll just allow it to lay flatter on the ground, so your tomatoes can just keep climbing up in the air. I think this is going to turn out to be a little bit of a longer video. Thanks for sticking around, guys. And gals. I had planned on doing more videos with the stuff that's growing in the greenhouse, but when you're filming strictly from a cell phone and no one is there to help you, it's really hard to make content in a closed environment, right? I'd be trying to hold my phone down here on the ground and trying to film with the other, and it would be all shaky. And I just got the tripod here a couple of days ago, so it kind of prevented me from making all those videos I wanted to make. I have posted some pictures about this. I did have, down in the bottom, I had 5 edamame plants growing. That's soybean, like what you get at the sushi places. I've got 2 basil plants. I had a bunch of dill. I had spinach growing. What else did I have? 2 basils, 5 edamame, spinach, dill. We've got the beans. We've got snow peas. 4 tomato plants. The cucumbers that I were growing here were Boston pickling cucumbers. And the reason I did that is because they grow really prolifically. They just hang fruit. And they had a really short date to maturation. So what I was trying to accomplish was anything that went in here had to be able to be harvested relatively quickly. I didn't want anything in here that was going to take a really long time to grow. Because I knew no matter how this played out in here, that by roughly this time of the season, I was going to have to take it all down because I've got all my summer stuff to start, right? Get sticky traps. Those are flies, right? So you get these off Amazon. They're double-sided. See, there's still a membrane on this side. So this side's been used. It's still, that's how sticky it is. They've been in here since Christmas. Check this out. Okay? And that's just my fingertip holding this sucker on. I think I paid $8 for about 20 of these. And these are 8 inches long by about 3 inches wide. And they're still good because I can just peel the backside off, right? And use the backside. So I'll probably take a chunk of craft paper or something and stick it onto the front side so I can just reuse these, because we're moving to the homestead in a month, and once we get to the homestead, once we crash land over there, I'm going to be setting up my whole entire spring greenhouse. We're going to have several hundred plant starts going on in there. We're already trying to determine what's going to get planted, so that's already in the works. So I'm just going to rehang these stickies in the new spot. All the lights are held up with a prusik hitch. See, they're totally adjustable. Pinch it, slide it down, let it go, and it stays. So you can adjust them, and all it is, you take a loop of cordage, tie it in a loop, wrap that loop, if this is your rope hanging down, just wrap it around and pull it through itself, and you'll get a prusik hitch. And as long as your rope isn't too slippery, right? It all takes one-handed. So all this is coming out. You know what? We're just going to make this easy. So here's the little 4-foot T5s. This thing weighs half a pound, maybe. These things are awesome. And they're really, really energy efficient. So if you're looking for something that's going to pull minimal amounts of energy, these little T5s, these little T5s are great, and you can pick them up anywhere. And you don't have to worry about the weight of them stressing the roof of your greenhouse, you know, because they weigh so little. Because they weigh so little, you can hang them from anything. And the plugs pull out, so you've got one end for your plug, right, to plug it into your power source. But the backside, you can daisy chain them together. So right now I've got each light running through a great big Stanley power bar, just for surge protection and all of that sort of stuff. But you can run all of these things together at one shot with one power cord. And then the daisy chains that you get for them, they're short. They're like 12, 14 inches. And you just daisy chain them all the way down, and all you need is one cord, so you don't have multiple cords all over the place. But here with the greenhouse, because they have the ventilation ports, top and bottom and all the way around, I was able to just feed all of the cords right out through the hole in the bottom and right into the power bar. This part might get interesting. Actually, before we do that, this is the fan I'm running. It's from Walmart, it's nothing special, but see, you can change the direction and it's got multiple speed setting on it. It's made by, who makes it? Chungwon Electric Company. Yeah. So these are great. And you can mount it. They've got the mounting hardware on the back. So you can, drill your screws into the wall and just angle it down however you decide you want to do it. You got to have a fan on your seedlings. You need to be able to move that air around. Because if your seedlings don't have any wind on them, they're not going to build up the cellular structure that's going to help them get strong, right? So if you put them outside and they've had no wind on them, the wind is just going to level them. So that's why you always want to start strengthening everything while you're growing it, because at the end of the day, it's going outside and Mother Nature doesn't care whether you've strengthened your plants or not. So the dual bulb, there you go guys, so you can read what's on the light bulb. There. At Home Depot, the fixture was worth about 25 bucks and I just bought 2 brand new bulbs about 2 weeks ago now, and they were 15 bucks for the 2. And what I do is the backs of them come with that metal slot, right? So I just hang them right off of that with some chains, and then I attach prusik hitches on other heavier rope, and then I can just lift these as need be. Because sometimes when you're growing seedlings, right, things like your peppers are going to take forever to grow, but your tomatoes are growing, so you need to be able to adjust your light like this as your tomatoes get taller when other stuff hasn't caught up yet. So that's why you put it on adjustable systems. You can also get systems through hydroponic setups for your LED lights, where it's like a ratcheting system. You can just pull it down and move it up, and it's got like a little cam in it that locks a little pulley type system. Those work great too, but I just wasn't investing the money into that at the moment. Cut all this stuff out. Garbage. Garbage. Need that little hook. So that's lights so far, plants down so far. The fan, I showed you guys the fan. And then back in the corner, you guys can't see it. A humidity gauge for the humidity in the room, as well as the temperature. So obviously, needs new batteries. But you got to know how hot it's getting in there. The greenhouse that I grow all my seedlings in, when I used to wrap it in plastic, I used to wrap the whole thing in poly, and it used to get so hot in there that the condensation was running down the walls just like in a shower. I've probably had that thing up to about 40 degrees because it sits in my bay window and gets crazy hot. So I don't wrap my greenhouse in plastic anymore. So those are the little cable ties that I'm using to hold up all the trellis netting. And you can get this trellis. I got this trellis netting off of eBay. It's 6 feet tall, and it's got 5-inch squares on it. And this stuff is great. I use it out in the backyard. I grow all of my cucumbers. I have this stuff tied to a fence, and I just let all of my cucumbers grow right up all this. And it works fantastic. I've been running the same stuff out there for 3 years. I would have torn it down this year and started over with some new stuff, but for $7 for 15 feet of trellis netting that you can literally attach to a couple of T-posts and grow vertically straight up, call that a win. It's always sad when you got to take a project down like this, you know? You spend all that time putting it all together and giving it love and taking care of it all the time, and you know, anybody who gardens seriously knows what it's like when it's the end of the season and you have to start tearing everything down that you grew all season. You gave it all the love and everything it needed to grow healthy and strong, and now you're out there with a pair of these fellas. Normally what I would do in the fall when I would tear down my garden is, once everything has stopped producing and season's winding down, I start planning to build my hot compost. And I build about 2,000 pounds of it every fall. I've got a massive pile of it out in the backyard. And because regionally where I am, come roughly mid-September to end of September, everything green outside is already starting to die. So it's really hard for me to source green material that's required to build that hot compost. So one of the things I do is I put everything that I grew in my garden right back into my compost pile, because I know it hasn't been grown with chemicals. I know there's no pollution. I know that there's no other associated issues with putting that in my compost. and I get my compost smoking hot. So even if there was some sort of pathogen or mold on anything in my garden, I'm not even remotely concerned about it. The heat in the compost pile will just deal with any sort of those issues. So as long as you get your hot compost above 135 degrees in the center for 5 days, that'll kill all of your weed seeds and all of your pathogens. So keep your compost pile hot. You don't want it crazy hot. You don't want it above much more than about 150, because after that it's detrimental. But if you can keep it at about 135 degrees for 5 days, coffee, then you're good to go. Got in here. So I know you guys are wondering that I've said, you know, this thing is 15 feet long, and you're probably thinking to yourself in your head, that greenhouse isn't 15 feet. What I've done is in the corner here, I've coiled up all the last lengths of the greenhouse, or of the tarp. And I'm just going to literally roll it back up, and then it'll just get it'll just get put back into use when I need it this springtime. Because we don't up here in Ontario, we don't plant our gardens till give or take May 2-4 weekend. So mid-May. Before that, we get random frosts, and one good frost will literally wipe out everything in the entire garden. So that's just about that. One more tie, and the trellis netting's out of here. So then, here it all is. So I'll just coil it up, and I'll just use a chunk of the rope that I've already cut and thrown in the garbage, and I'll just wrap that up. And yeah, so we're literally just down to pots, guys. See? From the tomatoes, San Marzano, right? So that's it. We're pretty much disassembled. The only thing left is just tidying up stuff on the floor. The beans in there, yeah, see? So there's nothing left, it's just dirt and pots. So the beans in there, I'm not going to eat today because there's not enough to feed to the family. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take those beans, I'm going to throw them up on my windowsill in my kitchen. They're going to dry out. I'll harvest the beans out of that and just put those bean seeds right back in with the rest of my stock of bean seeds. I probably have 2,000 bean seeds. Every year I grow them, they get better. And that's the thing, if you're going to grow and save your own seeds from your environment, one, you have to make sure that you isolate the plants that you want to pull seeds from to make sure they're not cross-pollinated. So, for example, with those beans, because I only grow those beans in my yard, I'm not worried about them getting cross-pollinated. But the other benefit is if you harvest your own seeds from your own land and you grow those seeds the following year, and then you harvest and you grow them the following year, what you're doing is you're training and teaching the DNA in those plants to grow in your geographic area. So if you harvest and plant and harvest and plant, every year those seeds will increase in viability for growth for your area, because it just becomes ingrained in the genetics. So if you're able to do that, save your own seeds. Here, look at this. These are seeds I saved from one cucumber plant last year, and that's how I save them. Just on a paper plate, piece of wax paper. I take all the seeds out. These are cucumber seeds from my Market More cucumbers. I just save all the seeds, rinse them through a metal colander or a screen colander to get all the goop off, lay them out on a piece of wax paper, and let them dry. So that's one cucumber. How many plants do you think we could grow out of that? You know, there's probably 200 seeds in here. That's 200 plants, and each plant will probably produce 2 dozen cucumbers for you. That's it. That's all it took, guys. Pull your seeds out of your plant. Make sure your plant is really ripe. The cucumber that came out of was kind of yellowy orange by the time I ripped all the guts out of it. Rinsed them off, put them on the wax paper, let them dry. That's good for this year, and I'll replant those seeds this year. So, thanks for sticking around. I know it was a bit of a long video. I just wanted to kind of show you guys what you can do with a greenhouse. So this is a 2 foot wide by 4 foot long by 6 foot high. And one person can put this thing together. It's super easy, super durable, right? The door's lined with plastic, and this is all Mylar. It keeps all the heat in, and you can run all of your ductwork through it, right? If you want to run charcoal filter fans and inline filters, this has everything you need. I wish the tent was mine. It's not. Got to give it back to the owners. I'm just glad that they were generous enough to let me run this through for the winter time to see what I could do with it. So this is going to be the end of the video. Like, subscribe, share it around to your socials, and have a great day. I'll see you next time. Have a great one. Bye.